What's up, Unison Gamers? It is David at Unison Games Cafe in the stream room. I've got Vanquishers TCG in front of me. So we just had a mail day on the channel where I opened up my Kickstarter box, saw what was in it, and I promised that I would talk about these starter decks. I've got the Solaris and Veil starter deck in front of me. We just did a Learn to Play event at the shop. We taught and learned how to play Vanquishers. I've got both of these starter decks open and sleeved up. We had a ton of fun with it. I'm actually going to throw Veil, one of the heroes, on the zoom in cam here. So as I kind of talk about some of this stuff, we can reference and you guys can kind of see zoomed in the hero I'm talking about. But what I wanted to do, I've got the Raskin starter deck here. So I'm going to open this up. This is going to be a high level view of not only what comes in the starter decks, but also a little bit about the game, what some of the abilities and values mean. Don't exactly call this a learn to play, but this is going to make you dangerous enough that you can pick up your own starter deck, you can open up a booster box, and get building and get playing. So again, this is the Raskin starter deck. If you guys like videos like this, by all means, please like and subscribe to the channel. We've got a ton of new games coming out, Grand Archive, Cryptic, Vanquishers, Sorceries on the horizon, Alestrals. We do a ton of stuff. We're always looking for different games to supplement our community, give them something new to play with, and see what people like. But Raskin's starter deck, here we go. So really cool box. It's got kind of like a magnet that keeps it closed. Here is the starter deck right here. So Raskin is and you guys can kind of follow along here. We're going to talk about the hero card, but so there's a lot of symbols. The way I kind of teach things is that you're really playing the match game. Anytime that you see a symbol, you want to match it with something else. If you can, like right down here, we've got the weapons that Raskin can use. So there is a little cheat sheet card. We'll get to it when I open up this up. But it shows you, or at least tells you, the names of all of the symbols. So if you actually care about that. But realistically, like a handgun or an SMG, the symbol doesn't necessarily matter to you. This is what the card looks like right here, guys. I'll zoom it up a little bit more. I'm going to get out of the light a little bit. But these show you all of the symbols. So Raskin here has available to him handguns, or range weapons, sorry, and melee weapons. So he can use range weapons and melee weapons. And those symbols will match with cards in the deck. Raskin also is Dark Class, so that's almost like an element. Order Zero is his affiliation or his faction. And Sentinel Hero is his actual class. So we play a lot of Flesh and Blood in the shop. Those guys are knowledgeable about classes. You get a little rule book in here, looks like. This is actually a pretty good rule book. Tells you a lot about the game. This is what I use to kind of get up and running. Looks like they have a life counter app in development. And then you get your 2 dice and all your little cubes to track your stats. So I'll put the dice off to the side here. We'll talk about that in a second. But you got your little red cube. And top left corner. Let me see if I got my little pointer with me. Whoop, there we go. I got a little pen here. So top left corner here, we've got 26 hit points. So that's actually kind of good. So you'd put your red cube on 26 hit points. Down here is your second stat here is your shield value. So when you take damage, it's going to come off your shield unless otherwise stated. And that is what you start off at. That's also your cap. So as you recharge your shield, you can't go above that number. And then last but not least here on the left-hand side is your defense value. That is going to be important for your opponent, that when you get targeted, when they're actually going to shoot you or attack you with a melee weapon, they're going to need to know that number. This blue or green cube here is our energy storage cube. We'll talk about that in a second. And this little yellow cube here is going to be for armor, of which I don't know if any armor is in the starter decks. We'll look. I obviously haven't opened the Raskin one yet. And then really just a couple other notes on the hero card here. So this little looks like a human kind of surrounded by it reminds me of an atom. But this is your shield recharge value. So I just talked about your shield of 14. The first thing that you do at the start of your turn is you can sacrifice an energy storage, so you can go down in energy to charge your shield. And we'll talk about that in a second. And then last but not least, and one of the more tempo swing abilities is your V-trigger ability. And again, we'll talk about that as well, really when we get into the energy sides of things. Put that off to the side. But that's our hero. What's really cool is on the back side, boop, you get a really cool like foil version of it. And let me, for you guys at home, let me throw Veil on his V-trigger mode. And so you get some increased abilities, power-ups, and it also unlocks abilities for your other equipment and weapons when you V-trigger. Your stats go up, as you guys can see. So that is your hero card. That's essentially the crux of your deck and how you deck build. When you actually play, you put your hero in this spot here with V-trigger side down because you haven't activated it yet. We've got some trap cards in here in the starter deck. And then we really get right into it with all of this equipment and weapons. At least from the starter deck perspective, I look at 3 different types of cards. So range weapons, or I should say weapons in general, because we do have some melee weapons in here, ammunition, and then last but not least, abilities. So let's just grab any old ability here. Boom. Now, the one thing that you will see between all of these cards is top left corner, and let me throw a weapon on the stream here. If you guys can zoom in here. Whoop, there we go. Oh. Cool. So top left is your energy value. Now, let's talk about energy because we're going to keep on referencing it. After you've determined whether or not you want to charge your shield points, that is the first part of the turn. The second part of the turn is you draw a card off the top of your deck. So deck will go here. And you start off with 7 cards at the beginning of the game. So you draw a card, and then you can burn or exile any card in your hand. So let's say this was our 7-card hand right here. You can exile any card in your hand face down here in your exile slot, right there. And that is going to move your storage counter up 1. So every turn, as we draw cards and burn cards, your storage is going to increase. And what that does is that gives you, so let's like fast forward a little bit. Let's say 3 more turns have passed. Boom, we're at 5 storage energy. 5 storage energy is going to allow us to play the cards in our hand. So this weapon right here, this Rev 0, costs 3 to actually equip. So of the 5 that I have, 3 of it I'm going to use for my weapon here, and that is equipped. I have 2 left for my turn. Simple math, you don't actually move this at all. It's just a cap. So I could pass, I could do other things that cost now 2 left of this turn, and that would be my turn. Next turn, we're going to exile another card, we're going to charge. That is when we get back to the hero, that V-trigger ability to be more powerful. This -6 on Raskin is, let's say we're at 8 storage energy for the turn. If we wanted to, and this is after you draw and after you exile a card, now you can activate your V-trigger ability. Your V-trigger ability on the right-hand side here says -6. So it's going to cost, and this is when you actually move your cube, 8 down to 2 maximum to level up V-trigger. So now that -6, we're more powerful. We have less storage, but V-trigger unlocks a couple other abilities. One being, instead of 1 card, you draw 2 cards a turn. So same thing, that's on the step 2 of your turn. And then instead of exiling 1 card to increase our storage energy, we can also exile 2 cards to go up 2. So we will get back to that kind of maximum. We just took a small little speed bump to V-trigger, and then we're going to go up and become more powerful. Let's go back to normal mode here. So we explained how energy is used, and again, I'm showing off these first kind of 3 main cards. I think I burned one here. Let's see where my ability is. Beautiful. So advanced targeting for Sentinel. Now your cards will also have different things on it, like what kind of weapon this is. This is a handgun. This is the symbol I talked about that matches the symbol of things we can equip, your range weapon here. But let's talk about weapon, because I've got that zoomed in as well over here. So a lot of your turn is going to be targeting your opponent and trying to defeat them that way. And this weapon here, it costs us 3 energy to actually get into play. Great. Now, the next thing that I want to draw attention to is this bottom left corner. It's got this ammunition ability. You'll notice that ammunition matches this ammunition ability. So, in order to use this Rev 0 weapon, we need to equip ammo to it that matches this number. So this weapon needs 1 ammunition, and that's kinetic ammunition, that's what that symbol is, to actually fire. So, just like we paid 3 energy to play this range weapon, right here on my cube, I've got 4 storage energy. I would have 1 left over to actually, boop, equip this to my weapon. If I ever wanted to replace this weapon, and as long as the ammunition matched what the new gun would be, that ammunition stays, so I don't actually lose it. So it's a little bit of an investment. Let's say I were to upgrade to this. This costs 2, needs 2 ammunition. That I would get 1, and I would have to find another one to equip that. But main points of a weapon, obviously how much energy it costs to get out, how much ammunition you need to actually fire it, and then there's really 2 other spots to draw attention to. This little reticule here, this 5, this is your targeting value. This is really the crux of the game. What you need to hit your opponent, right? So this Rev 0, and let's say we were fighting a mirror match and we were going up against another Raskin. This is when this defense value, the shield, comes into play. So this 12 is his defense. This 5 is my targeting. We do some simple math. 12 minus 5. I need a 7 on my 2d6, and I'll roll them inside this little box here. Boom. Boxcars. 6/6. We did it. 12 plus 5 meets or exceeds his defense. I have hit him. After I have hit him, we've got some abilities that could trigger. After successfully targeting, deal the number on the ability die as your kinetic damage. So let's talk about that. You'll notice I've got 2 different color die. The black one is simply a targeting die. The red one is a targeting and ability die. So if there's ever an ability that references a number rolled, maybe a 6, maybe an even number, it's looking at that red die. So after successfully targeting, deal the number on the ability die as your kinetic damage. Kinetic damage is the actual amount of damage that we deal with our weapon, which is this symbol here. It deals 0, which kind of stinks. But if you roll as good as I do, that ability is referencing the red die. I'm dealing 6 kinetic damage. Let's talk about damage. If you take kinetic damage and you have shield, that's going to come straight from your shield. So I have 14 shield, pew, all the way down to 8. Now we're at the point where we've taken some shield damage. That first step of our turn, we can sacrifice an energy storage to go up this number here, right below the little human looking thing, 5. So I can go, at the start of my turn, I can sacrifice an energy to go up, back up to 13. So you can recharge your shield as you go, but it's obviously going to cost you your energy, so you got to use that wisely. So we took this damage here with our weapon. And then really, last but not least, we've got the other type of card, which is an ability card. You know it's an ability card, top right, ability, just like this says item. And this says power up, it's ammunition. But abilities usually just tell you what they do. A lot of abilities will go into your ability slot and they'll get discarded. You just read them what to do. So advanced targeting says, add 4 targeting to all range weapons until the end of the turn. So if I were to have enough energy this turn and I were to pay 3, and this was my loadout, I would add 4 to this 5, and I now have a 9. So again, I go to roll. Boom, we did it again. We got a 6 on that die. 11 plus 9 is 20. That meets or exceeds. And we're going to deal 6 damage because that ability is what it looks at for the ability targeting die. So that's really how you pay for cards and what you're going to do for weapons. You'll notice on the HUD here, you've got a couple different item slots as well as a hero item. The hero item is kind of like the weapon that your guy is going to use. For Raskin here, you'll notice that it's unique. That means you can only have 1 in your deck. Dark, that's the ability or the class that he has, the element, if you will. It's his hero item, as you can see here. You'll also notice that it doesn't take any ammunition. So you put this in your hero item slot. So I could have a weapon. I could also have my Parallax equipped. And I could have another weapon here too. Maybe a melee weapon, maybe just another gun. And when you go to that targeting phase, you get to use all the weapons that you have equipped that have ammo. This Parallax has a 9 targeting, which is really cool. And it also has a bunch of abilities. The first 2 abilities, everything's really self-explanatory. You know, the classic read the card explains the card. And then you'll notice this green V matches your green V trigger. So if you are V triggered, meaning that we sacrifice some energy and we're in V trigger mode, that ability unlocks and we get to do whatever that says. So with Parallax here, you'll also notice a different symbol here on the right-hand side. I'll throw that over on the, you guys can see it there. Right above the kinetic damage symbol, you have a shield damage symbol. Now, that cares about our opponent having shield. So Parallax is going to deal 2 shield damage in addition to any kinetic damage it would do. Let's say you've already hurt your opponent enough. They have no shield. That shield damage gets wasted. That only does damage to shield. And really, that's kind of the meat and potatoes of the game. You're going to be increasing your storage every turn. You're going to be trying to equip different weapons. If you wanted to equip a different weapon, the only caveat is that it is not the same weapon. So you'll notice Nova here, and that it meets or exceeds the cost. So if we were here originally, we wouldn't be able to downgrade to the Rev 0. But if my Rev 0 has outlived its welcome, I can equip this Nova. Now, I need more ammunition, so hopefully I will draw that and find that and equip it here. And now I have a new weapon. If all my slots were filled here, you can always upgrade to something that is equal to or greater. I wouldn't be able to go down to this melee weapon, this carbon dagger. But really, that's the meat and potatoes of the card game. You're going to and let's go over just quickly, and I'll kind of show the little cheat sheet card here that you get in here. But everything is very deliberate when it comes to like phases of the game. So we already talked a little bit about it. The first thing you get to do is you get to sacrifice an energy to charge your shield. I've got 5. My shield would go up by 5 if I sacrificed an energy storage. Then you draw a card. Then you can exile a card to increase your energy storage. Then you get to activate your V-Trigger ability if you haven't already. And then you just activate cards in your hand. And that's what the equipping is. That's what the playing of the abilities is. That's what equipping of the ammunition is. That's activating cards. After you've essentially used all your energy storage to do that, that's when you get to the targeting. That's when we start rolling, 6s on our ability die. And then that's when you're trying to meet or exceed. We rolled an 8 here. 8 plus 6 is 14. Boom, we got Raskin right on the dot. Fantastic. If you roll poorly, you miss. You might have abilities that care about missing. Make sure you read your abilities. But that's targeting, and then you would just end your turn. There are some elemental effects and damage. You can get burned. You can get frozen. Those are all very self-explanatory in the rule book. I'm going to quickly go over some of the extra cards within this starter deck just to kind of show you guys. We do have quite the suite of weapons here. Everything looks so just cool and like if John Wick style, I open up the cabinet and I've got all these all these different weapons, and I get to decide what I want to bring to the game. This is a hero item, so I get to put that in my hero item slot until I get my really buff Parallax. Is that Parallax? Yeah, Parallax. Kinetic ammunition, deck building. Cards you can be 4 of in your deck, but ammunition, we've got energy and kinetic. You'll notice the symbol is a little bit different for energy, and weapons will dictate which equipment or which ammunition it needs. But these can be any of. So you'll notice I've got, looks like 8 kinetic ammunition in this deck and 5 energy. So based on how you build your deck, you put as many as you need in there. These are also great cards to burn for energy storage. We've got some ability. So these are all abilities and power-ups and energy class. You could essentially give yourself, a la Pokemon, like weaknesses and strengths and resistances. This would slot under your hero, and it would give you resistance to dark and also weakness to different things. So when your hero takes energy class damage, he takes double light energy and resists to dark energy. So you could put those in your deck to maybe become resistant to your opponent if you're playing like a mirror match or something like that. And if it's not relevant or if it's going to hurt you too much, you just burn it as energy. So super flexible. We got grenades. There's trap cards in here that you get to lay in your ability face down, and you show that you paid using like a trap card. And then traps have like special targeting things, right? It might be when your hero is hit or when you're targeted. You get to flip this, do some damage, increase your defense, stuff like that. Here's a trap card right here, this orbital shield. You guys can like look at that and read that. There's armor. But yeah, it feels really cool. It reminds me a lot about Flesh and Blood, where you're building your hero, you're equipping your items, you're trying to find different abilities and stuff to like protect yourself, as well as like do some alpha strikes. Advanced targeting adds 4 targeting to all range weapons. So if we're in a point where we've got like 3 weapons out, we can just go boom, everything's +4, ba 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 ba, you know, and really get at your opponent there. But yeah, just quick and dirty video here. We're super excited about playing the game. I am going to make another video where we're gonna do an actual little gameplay, so you guys can actually see the back and the forth of the game. I'll grab one of my my locals to do that, and then maybe we'll do like a booster box opening, because there's definitely some really cool foils, some really cool foiling techniques that I really like to showcase. These cards right here, I mean, I don't know if I can get this on camera, but like, it's almost like a credit card material. It's so foily and shiny, and like the edges look really clean and crisp. It's just a really cool vibe. It's something that I haven't seen in the market. That's why I brought it in. There's really nothing for us sci-fi people out there. But yeah, this is Vanquishers TCG. Again, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you can get the Learn to Play or the gameplay video when we do it, and the booster box openings. And keep on tuning into Unison Games Cafe as we showcase these different games. You know, like as I tell people in the store, it's not all Magic and Pokemon. There's a lot of really great games out there, and it's our job to not only build a community for it, but to introduce it to you guys. But until next time, this is David signing out.